Ah, damn, dudes! Welcome back to another episode of Let's Compare All These Dirt Bike Games. In this one, we got us a pretty interesting one. So, not too long ago, I had one of you dudes, I think you might have put it in my Discord or you put it in the chat of one of my live streams or something like that. You brought this to my attention and you said something along the lines of like, isn't it crazy that we look back at MXGP 3, we look back at Supercross 3, right? Follow me here, boys. Okay, you can even go to the MX versus ATV games. You think about it for a second. MX vs. ATV Unleashed, MX vs. ATV Untamed, and what was the third one? You see what I'm saying, bro? Spency boy out here on some damn Illuminati shit, dude. We got threes everywhere, dude. There's definitely something to this. So I wanted to talk about this in this video. I thought it was just interesting nonetheless how, you know, it really does seem like when we talk about these MXGP games, I know there's a shitload and a half of dudes out there that when they look back at their favorite one or they look back at one of the better ones, the most I've seen is people talking about MXGP 3. Out of all of the older MXGP games, they always seem to circle back to that one. And when you bring up the Supercross games, especially when people really start talking about the physics side of it and stuff like that, it seems like the majority of people look back at Supercross 3 as being one of the better ones, right? Or the best one. A lot of people think it's the best one. And I don't really need to say anything else about Reflex. You know, it kind of speaks for itself. But we got something going on here with the threes for sure, dude. MXGP 3, Supercross 3, and Reflex being the third, you know, main series game of these different dirt bike gaming series that we have. Obviously, you had MX Unleashed, and then also Motocross Madness and all that shit before that. But when you just talk about MX versus ATV games specifically, Reflex was the third one. So I think there's definitely something to this, boys. I really do. I think there's something to this entire thing here. Of course, it's easy to look back now on everything because hindsight's always 20/20, you know what I mean? But I do remember playing Supercross 3 more than any other Supercross game. I do remember back when I very first got into the game and got into the multiplayer of Supercross 3, it was really the only Supercross game that I even remotely got into the multiplayer on it, right? Back when I had my MXM team and all that type of shit. Did some multiplayer live streams on it. We had a good old time back on Supercross 3. But I definitely look back and realize at this point that there was just something about Supercross 3 that sort of brought me back to it more than a lot of these other Supercross games after it, right? Like Supercross 4 and 5, even though I think there were some better elements in those games, they just didn't keep me playing them for as long as I did Supercross 3, right? And I mean, good Lord, this track right here on Supercross 3, is this the Nashville one? This one's better than any other track in the entirety of Supercross 5. Entirety. Switzy boy English. It's hard out here, bro. Holy shit, dude. Oh! We're going to come up a little short Kevin Hart out here, big dogs. Holy shit. Bro, it's so much fun get back into Supercross 3 again. It does something to my brain where it instantly like makes me competitive. When I get back in on Supercross 3, I'm like, okay, let me try to actually hit these jumps right. Let me try to actually think about what I'm doing. Because there's such a momentum loss to this game if you don't land shit right. And just this track content, the overall content all the way around, I feel like was better in Supercross 3 than it was in 4 or 5. You know, and that just makes so much of a difference in these Supercross games that are so lackluster in the content category to begin with, right? But I don't know. Like, I think now that we look back it really is a situation of, I think something happened after the MXGP 3 days and the Supercross 3 days. Something happened where Milestone really started trying to go in there and like really do something to the physics, you know what I mean? I feel like at the end of the day, like MXGP 3 and Supercross 3 are really just like advancements of their original physics systems that they had in the first Supercross game and like MXGP 1, right? There is that little weird slide out on concrete feeling on Supercross 3, but, you know, there's obviously better and worse things about, like, fucking MXGP 2021 than MXGP 3. There's better and worse things about Supercross 5 than Supercross 3, but, like, as a whole, I think one of the big things physics-wise that has happened since the MXGP 3 days and the Supercross 3 days is they have heavily cut back on the speed feeling of the games. That's one thing I've really been able to point back to and be like, oh, damn. Like, Supercross 3 and MXGP 3 certainly had more of a faster speed feeling just in general to the gameplay, right? Like, if you go to MXGP 2019, especially 2019 and 2020... You go to like Supercross 4 and 5, the gameplay's just slower. It's just slower. And in a lot of cases, that translates to being more boring. You know, it translates to more of that making you fall asleep when you're playing the game. Even though there's more movement to the bike, I feel like, in the newer MXGP games and the newer Supercross games than the third versions of these games. The speed part of it, though, I feel like I say, that combination of them slowing the games down, the speed of the games down, and, you know, it's like Milestone's first real attempt to really try to change the physics from the core, right? Going to the games after MXGP 3, right? You went to MXGP Pro. That was a catastrophic event. You know what I'm saying? It seemed like MXGP Pro still had a little bit of that speed feeling to it, but good Lord, it had some issues to the physics side of it for sure. But like, definitely when you went from Supercross 3 to 4 to 5, it's like Milestone has tried to add a lot more of that movement to their physics system. You really got to sit down and think about what I'm saying here, right? So basically the way it works is the more and the more you try to change that physics system at the core, and you're not just basically like changing the top surface layer of it, you know, you start really digging deep into the movement systems and the inertia systems of the bike and everything like that, the more risk there sort of is in that, right? Because it's kind of like, I feel like with a lot of the changes they've made to these games after MXGP 3 and Supercross 3, some of those changes have been good, but they've also changed the physics in a way that I feel like have brought the games backwards in certain ways, right? So it's not just all better physics-wise. Even though there's some aspects of it that are better, I don't think it's just all better. Right? And I think the reason for that is with obviously Milestone not giving themselves enough time to really make that proper physics improvement from the core. It's easy for Milestone to make those little changes to the top layer of it, like they did going from, like, you know, MXGP 1 to 2 to 3, or from Supercross 1 to 2 to 3. You know, just changing that top layer, surface layer of the physics in the gameplay, it's odds are you're just going to make it better, but you're going to make it better micro-wise, right? And I've been telling Milestone they need to dig into the core of these physics, but you have to do it right, you know? You've got to take the time to do that shit right, and I guess Milestone just didn't really have the full amount of time to do that. Plus the fact, I still feel like MXGP 3 has the best terrain deformation of any fucking Milestone game. Yes, I know it sounds like I'm pulling your leg out here, but I'm not, bro. I swear to God, MXGP 3 still to this day feels like it has the best terrain deformation system of any other Milestone game. Reflex has the best terrain deformation of any fucking dirt bike game, still to this day. 2009 shit came out. Good Lord, when are these companies gonna learn, man? I don't know. I really don't. Like, all of the blueprint is fucking laid out there for what a arcade dirt bike game should be, and content and terrain deformation, how the evolution of it all, you know, all that's all been laid out more than a decade ago. I really don't understand why it's been so damn hard for us to get back to that kind of vibe, you know? Spency Boy got to throw the vibe in the video. Throw back to the old school fan dudes. Boys, be sure and hit me up on Instagram if you want to get in the Discord. Spencer Turley, no spaces and no capital letters. Just DM me on that. Let me know you want to get in the Discord. I'll get you in there, bro. But yeah, definitely let me know down in the comments what you guys think. I just had to make a little video on this because it's just so interesting that, you know, from everything I've heard from comments and just like, you know, shit in my live streams and my Discord, the most that I've heard that people, you know, talk about and look back to and like the most is without a doubt 100% the third versions of each of these games. MXGP 3, Supercross 3, and Reflex. Without a doubt. So it makes you think about that third. Of course, you had the Mud game before MXGP 1. Of course, you had MX Unleashed before MX vs. ATV Unleashed. But I think there's something worthy to be said about, like, seems like these companies come out with their first game, right? And a lot of times, you know, it could still be a lot of improvements, shit like that, right? Then they go to the second game of a series. They make some improvements to it, but I feel like it's like that like perfect number, lucky number 3. It always seems to be perfect timing where it seems like that's around the time they're really trying to impress you with something, right? The third version of a game, because they're really trying to keep your attention span on it. You know, they're really trying to keep you going because there's already been 2 of the games, right? The first game of a series, you can get away with pretty much fucking anything. The second game of a series, you just got to make small improvements to it, but everybody's going to probably buy the second version of whatever. But that third version of whatever game it is, you really got to impress somebody to keep them interested in it. And I feel like that's exactly what happened with MXGP 3 and Supercross 3. But there's so many just unexplained things, like, why the fuck is this still the best terrain deformation in any Milestone game, Supercross or Motocross? Why? Why? Somebody, please, for the love of Pastrana, tell me fucking why. I can't. Spency Boy just can't. I can't figure it out. You know, that's the thing with the MX vs. ATV games that kind of makes a little bit of sense. A lot of times when you say, like, why is this shit not as good as Reflex? Because they technically lost all the Reflex code or whatever, and then it went to all the new dudes working on the MX vs. ATV games. So there is a little bit of sense there to be made, but, like, not having terrain deformation that you can really feel at all, or that it was even as good as back as in MXGP3, they still don't have that. Ain't nobody can make any sense out of that. Nobody. So that's pretty insane right there. But one thing about the MXGP games is, like, even the new ones, I mean, yeah, they've added a little bit more roughness on the tracks. They've added a little bit more of the pre-made rut vibe. Yeah, finally they fucking done it 69 years later with MXGP 2021. There's a little bit of it. You know, I'm not even going to say there's a lot of it or enough of it or anything like that, but there's a little bit of it. But at the end of the day, it's like when you go back to MXGP3, I mean, it ain't that much different, because it's like, with how small the roughness and the ruts and all that shit is in the newest MXGP games, it's almost the same difference as just going back to MXGP3 when there wasn't as much roughness, and there was more terrain deformation, it's almost the same difference. You know what I mean? It's not like you can look at these new MXGP games and be like, oh shit, bro, there's so many more braking bumps, and the bike can actually flip over when you hit these big-ass pre-made braking bumps, or like, oh my god, the terrain deformation is some fucking Reflex Sandwick level, next level shit in the new MXG. You know, you can't say any of that. So that in itself makes going back and playing MXGP3, you think in your head, like, why would I really play those new MXGP games? You know, it really makes you think about all that, right? And, you know, obviously not to mention, I mean, the compound of MXGP3 is pretty sick. Like I say, that overall speed feeling makes all the fucking difference in the world. It just does. Like, even when I get back to MXGP3 and I just hold the gas down in a corner like that right there, it kind of it doesn't scare me, obviously, but it gives me that feeling of like, oh shit, my 450 is hauling ass on this track. And you got to think so much more on the fly when the speed of the game is faster. And that's what I talk about when I say I feel like there's a problem with like MX Bikes' speed feeling. Of course, all the MX Bikes people are going to get all pissed off about, what the fuck, Smither, why are you bringing that into this? But it's something that needs to be said. The speed feeling of MX Bikes, the speed feeling of some of these newer MXGP games, and some of these newer Supercross games, I just simply, truly believe it's just so much slower that it's like you don't have to think as much about what you're doing because everything's not happening as fast, you know? When you get that faster speed feeling and just how fast it looks like you're going on the bike, it adds so much more to the gameplay of these games. I'm telling you. It does, man. So, definitely let me know down in the comments what you guys think. As always, had some fun on this vid right here. Still can't hit this fucking rhythm. Dude, I would have to start playing Supercross 3 a little bit again to get that kind of, to prevent that momentum loss, right? But yeah, damn dogs, there was definitely something back in the MXGP3 and Supercross 3 days, and I think Milestone should look back at that. Certainly the content that they had with Supercross 3 and the way they made the tracks and the speed feeling of these games. Like I say, I feel like if they would bring back the good elements of Supercross 3 and MXGP3, the terrain deformation of MXGP3, at least, hello, you know, if they would bring back some of those things, but still have like that better leaning forward and backwards movement that they have added with some of these newer MXGP games and Supercross games, I think that would be the actual key. You know, that would make the best version of these different Milestone games. So, either way, man, that's just one man's opinion at the end of the day, bro. Appreciate you guys watching all the videos. I'll see you boys on that next one.